Senators, on this episode, we are sharing our thoughts about the Star Wars projects of 2022. We share the good things, but we definitely don't shy away from the bad.
I love democracy.
Hello, Senators. Today, we're going to be doing a recap of the 2022 Star Wars shows. Going to be talking about the things that we liked about the shows. Going to be talking about the things that we didn't like about the shows. So we're just going to get right into it with the Book of Boba Fett. Now, Wayne, the Book of Boba Fett came out technically in 2021, like basically the last week of December. I think it was December 28th, actually. And so started in 2021, ran into 2022. So we're going to lump that into the projects here.
Mm-hmm.
Give me your high-level overview thoughts of the Book of Boba Fett.
If I can set the stage correctly, well, going into Book of Boba Fett, after coming out of Mando, we were getting Book of Boba Fett. We learned, and I was very hyped for Book of Boba Fett. I thought it was going to be a good show. I was really hyped for it. Everyone says that Boba Fett was overrated, and they didn't really care. I was trying to, at least in my life, trying to defend it and defend him and be like, no, this is going to be a great show.
Mm-hmm.
But as the show progressed, it was overall, the show is average. I feel like it didn't live up to its full potential of what Book of Boba Fett was. And it was very confusing because of how they treated him in Mando.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically because of that. So I liked it. It had a serviceable ending, but overall it didn't really feel like the the Boba Fett that we knew from Mando.
Yeah. It was really quite interesting. I have similar feelings. It wasn't my favorite Star Wars project. It's interesting that my favorite episodes of the Book of Boba Fett didn't have Boba Fett in them.
Yep, Mando.
And I think that is very telling. And I think that I don't think I'm the only one. I know that you probably feel that way. I know a lot of Star Wars fans feel that way. Like the Mandalorian episodes of that show, episodes 5 and 6, are the best episodes of that show, in my opinion.
Probably the best of both Mando and.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I think maybe
that episode 6. Like we're talking how we don't like the Book of Boba Fett, but honestly, episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett is probably the best live action Star Wars episode that we've gotten out of any project. Because you have Luke Skywalker, you have Grogu, you have Ahsoka. I remember getting up to watch that episode knowing that we were probably going to be getting Luke Skywalker and Grogu. But when Ahsoka came on the screen, I'm like, okay, they're doing it. Like, Dave Filoni's just going to go ahead and full send this one. And it was awesome. I don't know.
The other thing I didn't like necessarily about Book of Boba Fett, and it confused me, is because once again, it's kind of coming off of season 2 of Mando. We're supposed to be getting Luke and Grogu together, training and all that, and we did get that. But in my eyes, he was supposed to stay there for a lot longer than what we got in Book of Boba Fett, and then he just shows back up with Mando. Like, to me, it didn't really feel right. Like, he just not undermine the whole thing, but like he kind of cut a little bit out from under season 2 of the finale of the sequence of that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, the freaking Vespa squad, man.
The biker gang.
Yeah,
the Power Rangers.
The Power Rangers, yes.
The Spin-a-Rooney.
Yeah. God.
The Booker T like Spin-a-Rooney.
I mean, I just that show should have been a lot better than what it was.
Yeah.
He should have done a lot more than had his gang go out and do stuff.
Mhm.
I get that, like, he's trying to garner the respect for other, like, little individuals and the smaller people so that he can have his empire, kind of like what Palpatine is doing for the empire. Like, he has to have some people involved in it so that he can keep his power.
Mhm.
But for that show and what we got from season 2 of him, it didn't really correlate with that, and we thought at least I did. I thought he was supposed to be doing a lot more than just delegating the power or delegating
Mhm.
his resourcefulness, essentially. And I'm like,
Yeah, they really set us up for failure, I feel like, with The Mandalorian season 2.
yeah,
Because yeah, we get like the the awesome version of Boba Fett, the Boba Fett that we've always wanted to see. Like the
mhm,
Boba Fett that we, didn't get to see in the original trilogy, and then we finally get him. He's awesome, and then it's like, okay, we're getting more of this in a whole show, and
yeah,
it literally never happens. Like literally never happens. You could argue it happens in the last episode, but I kid you not, I've watched that last episode one time, and it was
yeah,
the first. It was
yeah,
when it came out at 2 a.m. in the morning Central Time.
yeah. I can't really remember it all that much. All I
He
remember,
rides a Rancor.
yeah,
There's a really cool moment where,
that is literally the only thing I remember about the episode is he
yeah.
fights Rancor or he rides a Rancor and he fights a giant spider thing or something like that.
Mhm. But it's like, so you have the Rancor. There's a really cool moment where they fly in, the Mando and Boba fly in, and like they start taking
Yeah,
people out in Tatooine, on Tatooine,
yeah,
uh, which is really cool. And then of course Grogu comes back, and there's the whole, they get reunited, and that's a whole separate thing. Like I think partly why I don't like the Book of Boba Fett is the fact that you take the single, like the literal plot, the story arc of the Mandalorian season 1, season 2, which I love the Mandalorian.
yeah.
You take the story arc of that and you literally almost retcon it or change it in a completely different uh TV show. It's like
Yeah.
it's weird, and it just makes the Book of Boba Fett feel weird. And I also feel like that Tamira Morrison, like, I feel like partly why we didn't see the Boba that we all wanted to see is because I don't really like. He's kind of older, like he's older for Boba Fett in a sense. Like Boba Fett, the character of Boba Fett is younger than Tamira Morrison is, and I just don't know if he can do the stunts. And so if you,
And that's fine, but that's literally why they have the other stunt people. Like,
Right, but it's like maybe they're trying to avoid all the drama that was potentially happening with Pedro Pascal not wanting to take
yeah,
his helmet, like wanting to take his helmet off. So they're like, okay, we want Tim
I
Morrison to
I
stay.
also think that he didn't. I think he wanted the version that, and this is just my humble opinion. I think he wanted the version that we were getting in Mando 2,
Hmm.
but he didn't. Not that he didn't have the guts to do it, but I feel like he didn't. He really didn't feel like he had the guts to speak up and be like, no, why are we not having a lot more action like we did in season 2 of
Hmm.
Mando than we are in my own show? Like, I think he literally said this uh, in an interview somewhere. I forget where, but I think, I believe he said something along the lines of, like, yeah, we should have had a little bit better version of, or a little bit of the
Hmm.
before version of
He
that.
has. He said it when the show I think was out, or
Yeah,
right before it came out, or right after it came out. I don't know, right around when it came out.
yeah,
And then he also just recently said something. I can't remember the full quote, but he was basically saying like we need to get Boba Fett back to where Boba Fett should be, which is
yeah.
potentially a hint at season 2, which I would love to see in season 2. Like I I mean, if it's
Either
better. I mean, I don't want to
either
see.
season
I
2
honestly
or he shows up in freaking uh, uh, Mando 3.
yeah, he could show up in Mando 3, but I would love to see a Book of Boba Fett season 2.
I would. I
As
would. Yeah.
a hot take, if we, like I was saying, I don't want to see a Book of Boba Fett season 2, if it's like the Book of Boba Fett season 1, like,
Yeah.
which is a good segue because it's the same exact way I feel about Kenobi. So let's talk about Kenobi.
Oh,
Same
Kenobi.
thing. I would love to see a Kenobi season 2. I would love to see a Kenobi season 2, but not if it's like Kenobi season 1.
Once again, the take that we both agree on, and probably a hot take across Star Wars, is we would rather them redo season 1 of Kenobi and not have, and instead keep the sequels and redo the season
Yeah.
1 Kenobi. Like,
Yeah, our hot take.
oh,
And leave a comment below if you all agree with this. You senators agree with this. We want your voice to be heard as well. But Wayne and I's hot take on this is we would rather see Kenobi be redone, retconned and redone, than touch the sequels. Keep the sequels. Don't
yeah,
touch the sequels. Like, whatever.
yeah.
But Kenobi is, in my humble opinion, and I'm just a senator of the channel too, okay? In my humble opinion, it is a atrocity to Star Wars. Like, it is
Okay,
horrific. It is
so
the worst thing that Disney Star Wars has put out, period. And I mean worse than The Last Jedi.
yeah, okay. So let's back up just a little bit. I
Okay.
agree with your take. So we just finished, or not we just finished, but uh, we're doing a recap of 22. So after Book of Boba Fett, we got Kenobi. The setup
We had Star
for,
Wars Celebration and Kenobi. Yeah.
so it was Star Wars Celebration. Everyone hype. Remember, it was all
Yes. I was so excited.
we were so excited for this show. I am one of the most biggest Star Wars fans for the prequels, and hearing that Ewan and Hayden were coming back together, my boys, my brothers were coming back to freaking Star Wars.
Mhm.
It was I never would have thought that that day would come, because I never thought that frankly Star Wars and Lucasfilm at the time had the guts to even pull it off, because we all know where this is going. But it was so hyped for that show, and the setup for that show, or in concept for that show, seems good.
Mhm.
Like you said, it is the worst thing that they've. That's supposed to be an easy W for Lucasfilm.
Oh, 100%.
That should have been literally an easy W for Lucasfilm. And they had to throw in I'm just going to call it the worst character that you could possibly ever come up with for that show is Reva. And this is not to say we do not hate the actor who plays it. We hate the direction that the directors and writers who came up with that character for that character and how it was written is a terrible character for this show. Everyone knew, or at least they should have known, that all people really cared about this show was Ewan and Hayden.
Mhm.
Everyone else can kind of get out of the way and move along.
Mhm.
It was about them two. If they threw the Grand Inquisitor in there, that's fine. We get that. We understand that. But to add in another Inquisitor that we not only had never heard of, and then have her the way that she was, and then the storyline that she got, how she got stabbed twice by Vader and still survived,
Mhm.
makes absolutely no sense. The only two people we cared about in those shows were the two main characters, Ewan and Hayden, and we never real hardly got them fighting or talking or any real dialogue at all.
You got them 3 times. I mean, you get them in episode 3 at the end, a little bit of a battle. You get them in the flashback. You got to remember the flashback with Ewan and Hayden, and
Yeah.
then you get them in the finale. Which the finale, by the way, is good. I mean, when Vader says, "I'm not your failure, Obi-Wan," I mean,
Oh,
that was awesome.
I love the ending, but the in between that and the relevance that they tried to give Reva
Mm.
for that show and kind of forcing her in there made absolutely no sense. I felt like if you could have had probably Reva in there and had her be less significant, and probably even get rid of Reva entirely, and that show probably maybe still could have functioned depending
Mhm.
on how they written it. And I feel like that could have been a lot better show than when you focus on Ewan and Hayden or Obi-Wan and Anakin. But that's just me.
Well, that's the thing. So the thing about this show is I by no means am a like I'm not I didn't go to film school.
No.
Like I don't really pay attention to the lot of the nitty-gritty things that come with a show, okay? Like I listen to the music.
What was your thought of the actual show, how it looked? What have you always told me what that film looks or what that show feels
Oh,
like?
it feels like a fan film. That's where I was going with this. Is like,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is like I'm not one to usually critique those types of things.
Yeah.
Like one could argue, like for example, looking at the Mandalorian season one, um, the Mandalorian season one, if you look at that, it kind of feels small scope. It looks very much kind of like small scale. You can tell that it's really filmed in the volume. But it's a good show. It's a good show. Has a good story.
I
The
never
Mandalorian season two, hang on. The Mandalorian season two feels a lot larger scale in some senses, especially that first episode on Tatooine with the Crate Dragon. Like
yeah.
feels very large scale, feels very cinematic. Okay. I remember thinking that when I watched it. Like this is they're upping the budget here, which is great.
Yeah.
It's a season two. The whole show of Kenobi um is so low budget. The whole thing feels low budget. And again, I'm not even one to usually critique those types of things. I don't usually care. I don't even usually notice. I just
Mhm.
can't watch it. But I noticed for this one. And I
I
think I noticed for this one
so
because it was Kenobi. It was Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like you said, this was the easiest W Lucasfilm had, and they got an F. An F. Like, you can't even make up how bad Kenobi is, in my opinion. Like I get people like it because it's Kenobi. And I
yes.
get that. And I get
Yeah.
that people like the character Reva. And I get that all these things. Like you can have all those opinions. I'm just saying that it is, in my opinion, the worst thing that Lucasfilm has put out the Disney era, period. And it's sad because it's freaking Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen as Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Darth Vader has all my favorite Star Wars characters in it, and it's bad.
It
And again, leave a comment below, Senators. If you agree, if you don't agree, let us know why. But go ahead.
yeah. I just it's a tragedy. That should have never happened. The the easiest W that they've ever had. It should have really healed not a lot of the fandom, but it should have helped and it
It
should
did
have
the
helped.
opposite.
Yeah, and it dug the crater even deeper.
Yeah, it sure did.
Yep.
It sure did. Well, let's go even farther down the rabbit hole here with Andor.
Oh,
Oh, and by the way, again, I just want to going back on Kenobi. One more thing.
yeah.
How many times have I watched that season finale episode? One time. I kid you not. Watched it one time.
I think I've watched that show one time, the whole way through one time, and I haven't even went back and watched any of
So, Book of Boba Fett finale one time. Kenobi finale one time. Andor. I don't even know if I finished Andor. I'm just being honest with you.
it. So, um,
That's the first show, by the way, for all you Senators. That's the first show that Wayne and I actually didn't watch together, like, period. Like, we've watched the other shows together. We sync up and we watch them at the same time. But we didn't do that for Andor. In fact, we didn't get up. Also, the first show that we haven't got up to watch it as soon as it comes out, just to put it in perspective for the Senators.
so uh, a person I watch on YouTube, he had a funny name for it. He called it Ambor
Mm-hmm.
because I have to agree with him.
Josh, right? Dinner Nerds.
Yep. Um,
Which we
after
all know how Josh feels about.
we all know how, or at least me and you do. Anybody else out there who watches him, we all know
Mm-hmm.
how he feels. He watched the first 3 episodes and he's like,
He's like, this is not gonna end well. He knew. He
he
knew the first
knew
3
from the
episodes.
beginning. He's like, yeah, this is not gonna go good. He's like, and this was coming off of Kenobi, right? So
Yes.
he thought Kenobi was terrible, and he's like, I've had this built up pressure all throughout 2022 for his viewing experience with Marvel and Star Wars and like the frustration there. And he's just like, I'm done with it. I'm done with doing live streams. I'm done with doing um, everything else. And I happen to agree with him on this show because there are a lot of, and I shouldn't say a lot, there are people that do like this show. I will give them props. It is a well filmed show. It actually has substance to it. It's actually shot well. It's just so freaking boring.
Yeah.
I'm like, once again, probably in another episode, in a, a before episode that we talked about, this show has been so boring for me to watch. It felt like doing homework, and you have the procrastination of not watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
I finally just had to say I'm gonna watch the rest of whatever episode
Yeah.
because I stopped watching the show and was like, I'll just wait till they come out
Mm-hmm. I did the same thing. Mm-hmm.
in succession, and that way I can just watch it all and binge the rest of the thing. And it felt like a chore to do it.
Yeah, in my opinion, it didn't make it any better.
No, it didn't make it. We thought it was gonna make it a lot better, and it really didn't. And to be fair, like Josh said today, he's like the numbers did come up for it. It was in like the Nielsen top 10 for like the final episode, but like, and like they got 50% more viewers, but compared to what, like relatively speaking, that may be a big jump for them, but is it really that big of a jump? Probably not. So,
well, and so, yeah, this is kind of my take on it. And shout out to Mike, a guy who loves Star Wars, his channel. I was in his live stream chat today talking. He was doing a 2022 recap as well. So, Mike, if you're listening, I was there. And I was chatting with him a little bit in his stream. And one of the things that I said is like the thing about Andor is like for Star Wars, two of the biggest, most important things for me is the emotion and the mystical elements of Star Wars.
music.
Yes, well, which kind of goes into the emotion, I think, for me personally.
Sure, yeah.
Emotion, mystical elements. Andor delivers on the emotion for me. Like there's some emotional moments of that show. Particularly with the music, I felt like the thing that it doesn't deliver on is the mystical elements. And in that sense, everyone always talks about Andor like it's not made for everybody. Like it's not like for some people it's just not their toy, right? It wasn't made for people like you and me in that sense.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, Disney
No.
can do whatever they want. I mean, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But for me, I think what it really showed me is what I love about Star Wars is that there's something deeper there, like the mystical elements of Star Wars, is something that I really personally love.
Yep.
And one could argue that it's not really there for the Book of Boba Fett. I would happen to agree. That's why my favorite episode is the one where the Jedi are in it. And it's not because it's a lightsaber. It's because there's mystery there. There's curiosity there.
We have to say that for the toxic positivity people that like Andor because,
Yeah, it has nothing to do with there being lightsabers or the Force.
Although lightsabers do give me a good and quick hook to get me hooked into the show, I like Andor a lot more. But
it's a good money maker. I mean, that's the thing. Like Disney wants to make money. Like that's why, in some ways, I would argue that Grogu is back with the Mandalorian so quickly, is because they don't want them to be apart for too long because that Grogu makes money. It's like Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank. Tell me how I make money. It's like,
but I feel like
it's like Grogu. It's like literally Grogu.
Like the emotional. Once again, to kind of your point on that, I know we're going backwards and talking about that, but the emotional side of that would have been to have Grogu stay with Luke a little bit longer and maybe get to season 3 or somewhere and have the reunion be a lot more emotional and sentimental in that way than literally we know they're getting back that quickly.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. But they're not going off of emotion. Like I said, they're Mr.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I want money.
Yeah.
So the way you get money is to bring Grogu back. Um, and I
But
think the fear is if Luke Skywalker, if Grogu was still with Luke, and you had to pivot between the Mandalorian over here and Grogu over here, you're
yeah,
sacrificing like Din Djarin's story in the Mandalorian because you're having to constantly go back to Luke Skywalker, and then it's the Luke Skywalker show.
sure.
So you have to bring them back together. But going back to Andor,
Yeah.
yeah, like I personally found it very emotional in some senses.
Okay. So
But maybe you disagree with that.
I kind of disagree with you on that. It did maybe the last episode when she's I think it was the last episode. I don't care at this point. Um I, where she's giving that speech after she died, whatever her name is. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't care about the characters. Like once again, that show is so boring for me. I don't really care about the characters other than Andor, and I just overall I just don't care about the show. Like it's a spin-off show, and it literally to me I don't care about it.
Yeah.
Maybe next season, hopefully they hook me in quicker and they give me a
Mm-hmm.
better story and more action-packed story. But
But that's the thing. Like, so I kind of I kind of disagree. Like, I did find that speech by his mom, Marva, I think is her name, uh, to be pretty emotional. Like it didn't move me to tears, but it kind of hits you in the feels.
sure. I like, yeah, it's like she's dead. She's trying to still help even after death. That's great,
But
but
not only that is, I think, just approaching it from the political side of things.
yeah,
Shout out to Star Wars politics. Um, but the political side, I mean, the Empire is this oppressive regime.
yeah,
Like we know where the story is kind of going with the Empire and how, like I said, oppressive they are.
yeah,
And it's a story of rebellion. And Diego, and again, this is where I agree with the idea behind Andor. I just don't know if it's the Star Wars project you want to release right now. Like I get the premise. Like Diego Luna has came out and said that Andor is about the little people of the galaxy.
sure,
It's
yeah,
not about the Jedi. It's not about the Force. It's not about Han Solo. It's not about Luke Skywalker. It's not about those things. It's about the
yeah,
little people. And it's true. I mean, a rebellion, it's about the little people. You have to start
yeah,
somewhere. It's a
yeah. No,
story of
I get
hope.
it.
But what's what I'm saying is like that part of it does. That's where the emotion swells in for me. As like this is, in some senses, that is Star Wars, but
Sure,
in other senses, the biggest thing for me is that mysticism, is that the light and the dark, the spiritual aspects of Star Wars that is
I
very
also think
relatable to every human.
I also think, and not that I don't disagree with you, I think it's really three things for me that have to make me get into a show, specifically this type of show, is you're gonna have to hook me really quickly on like give me action or something, hook me in really quickly.
Which they didn't do.
They really didn't do other than that one sequence with
Right at
him
Wilder. Yeah, kind of.
once again like him killing the two guys. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, that's kind of cool, and it kind of hooked me in. But like, you're gonna have to keep up that more and more to even keep me engaged.
Right.
Um, you're gonna have to, and then like you said, the mystical elements. Then you're gonna have to give me the emotion, and it's gonna have to be all three of these are gonna have to be synced up, ready to go through pretty much the whole show, and it really never did anything for me. It maybe hit in places here and there, but overall, like I said, it was a chore to get through. Like
Yeah.
I had a burning desire not to watch the show, and I had to force myself to watch the show.
Yeah. Um, just to kind of keep the ball rolling here, and if I haven't said it already, I watched the Book of Boba Fett finale one time. I've watched the Kenobi finale one time. I've watched the Andor finale like half a time because I honestly don't know. I think I may have just really keyed in and honed in on that speech by Marba.
Yeah.
I don't really remember anything else about the finale because I was doing something else while watching it. So, um,
Also, once again, this is just for Andor people that like Andor. If you like the show, that is fine. It was just not for me, and it was just not for me. If you like it, that is fine. But I think it is a chore to get through.
yeah.
I'll say in my piece there.
So let's talk about Tales of the Jedi now. Something that I
Okay.
think was particularly we were both pretty fond of. For me, I was very, very happy with that show in particular. I think they were really smart to keep the show. I know some people were disappointed that the episodes themselves were short, but I personally found it to be pretty enjoyable and pretty digestible. In fact, I hope that if there's one thing that they can learn is that Star Wars fans like this type of content, and that's kind of why we wanted to save it for the end, is because I feel like in general most Star Wars fans agree that this is kind of like this was overwhelmingly supported by all fans. Leave a comment below if you didn't like it. Leave a comment below if you did like it. But um, I hope what it signals to Lucasfilm is it doesn't matter how long the episodes are. It doesn't matter how long the show is on Disney Plus. Like again, Disney, I know you want to make money, and the way to make money is to have shows on the platform for long periods of time. So we all have to say subscribe to Disney Plus. But guess what? The one Star Wars project that all fans can get behind of 2022 was Tales of the Jedi, and it
Yep.
was literally 10-minute episodes. 10
15.
6 minute 10 to 15-minute episodes, 6 episodes long. You dropped it all in one day, and I'm
Hmm.
willing to bet that it didn't cost that much money,
And I would even
as much as
argue.
Kenobi.
I would even argue that you said we're fond of it. I think it's one of the best Star Wars things that they've done.
Period. I would say
Yeah,
even George
probably.
Lucas.
Yeah, just period. It's up there with Rebels for me. It's up there with Clone Wars. It's up there with Revenge of the Sith. Like it's up there in terms of the value of that it brings to Star Wars. And you would think, how can 10 or 15 minutes of episodes of 6 episodes really provide and give you a lot greater detail than the world that we already know?
Mhm.
Well, it's because you have a visionary behind it named Dave Filoni, who was mentored by George Lucas through the Clone Wars and kind of maybe even a little bit through Rebels.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a George Lucas esque heir to the empire sort of thing. Like we're handing you the keys to the car type of
To the
thing.
mansion.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're handing you the keys to Lucasfilm and Star Wars knowledge, I guess I should say.
yeah,
You're right. I mean, it seems like every project that Dave is involved in, for the most part, is a successful project.
yeah.
He was involved with the Book of Boba Fett, but honestly, the episodes I bet he was most involved with are the best ones. So it's like, I mean, his
Yeah.
track record is pretty good. And I think the problem with it is like, well, we're saying we love Tales of the Jedi because it has the Force and it has the Jedi, which is kind of just a way for a toxic fan to come in and say, this is why you don't like Andor because
Sure.
there were Jedi. And I
Fine.
mean, that's fine.
If that's what makes them happy, great. That's
Yeah.
fine.
But
But
I mean, it
th-
really is. It hits all the things for me. Like it hits all my favorite characters. We got Ahsoka. We got to see. I mean, Star Wars. The perfect Star
I
Wars formula, in my opinion,
I
is
would Dooku arcs.
building on to what we already know. Like the fact that we know now that Ahsoka was at Padme's funeral.
Yep.
Those are the Star Wars moments that make it for fans.
Yeah.
That's why fans coming back to the franchises because of moments like that.
Once
Or
again, it's how Dave is the master at this. How do you make? Once again, I kind of set this up, but it was like, why do fans love the show so much? It's because they care about the moments in between what we haven't seen and creating new moments around the Star Wars universe that we already know and have knowledge of.
Mm-hmm.
Give us things like, how did Ahsoka survive? Oh, it was because of Anakin's training early on.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was Ahsoka at? We weren't even really asking these questions, but to know that Ahsoka's at Padme's funeral and we didn't see her in Revenge of the Sith, that's just so cool that we know that now.
Yes.
Other moments. Why did Dooku fall, or even when was his falling point, or who erased the plans from
The Camino, the location of Camino, yeah.
right.
Or
And
really, I mean, we got to see Dooku witness the death, not witness, but experience and come to terms with the death of his Padawan, Qui-Gon. Something that was very passive, like when the Phantom Menace came out. I mean, people
well,
didn't know who Qui-Gon was, and it wasn't very emotional. I mean, it was emotional in the sense of like Obi-Wan was there, but now you have Dooku, and it's like you have that context there, and like that's why like what you just said, like specifically kind of with like the Ahsoka thing, like being able to protect herself against the clones is because Anakin trained her. It's like it's what George Lucas says, like Star Wars, it's poetry, it rhymes. Like Star Wars has to rhyme. That's
yeah.
what makes Star Wars is the similar themes. And yes, did
Speaking
Andor
speaking of the themes, the first episode that we got, I don't believe there was ever a lightsaber involved in the first episode,
no, but it's touching.
but it has the themes of Star Wars,
The Force.
and it had nothing to do with lightsabers.
Nope.
No, it just had a really good story that hit the themes of Star Wars.
But lightsabers make everything better. I mean, let's just be real.
They do, but let's call it what it is. But I love that show. Like, those episodes are amazing. I was even surprised that we got to see Dooku and Qui-Gon, those episodes and moments together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I never understood. Like, we read Jedi Lost or something like that. It was something like that, and they were always talking about, like, how was Dooku and Qui-Gon together, and like I had maybe a small understanding of what that was, but to actually see them together, not really training, but going through moments that they had together, I understand the dynamic that they actually had now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yes, like it's a typical master and Padawan thing, but it's new characters, and every time they do that thing, I don't care if it's the same way that they do it every time. It still hits me in the feels when they talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and those are the types of moments I love for Star Wars.
Yeah.
So
And so leaving it there, it's like those are our thoughts on all these major, I guess I should say, Star Wars projects of 2022, the shows.
and hopefully in the future we have much to look forward to in 2023.
Yeah. No, that's a good, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Not only for Star Wars, but so for Star Wars, we have Ahsoka, The Mandalorian, we have Bad Batch Season 2, we have The Skeleton Crew, and there will be much more. But for our channel as well, for those who have made it to the end here, for all the senators who are a part of the channel, we just want to say thank you. At the time of recording this, we're at 60 subscribers.
Yep.
And we're building a community of senators. We have a lot of cool things we want to do in the future. We'd love to start live streaming to bring you, to bring everyone together, to be able to let you senators have a platform, to be able to engage with you senators and engage with each other in the comments section and potentially the live streams in the future. We're going to start live streaming once we hit 100 subs. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends to subscribe. Be a senator of the channel. Just by being here, you're a senator, but we would really appreciate that if you would subscribe. And so, yeah, lots of things to look forward to in 2023. If you haven't checked out our video, the top 5 cameos possible cameos of the Bad Batch Season 2. Check that video out. And remember, these are the fans you're looking for.